And we're live. Alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In alhamdulillah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. We'd like to welcome you to the 3453 Elder Show, formerly known as the Awoken Grand Folk Show. And depending on the mood and the time or whatever, we might go between both of those names, So, but it's great people on this panel. That's all you need to know. And we'll start today's podcast with introducing them or reintroducing them, because if you don't know us by now, you'll never know us. Ooh. So old. I know y'all know it's an old school song. So to my side, I don't know if it's left or right, we got Dr. Sabir, alhamdulillah, joining us again. Welcome, Doctor. Below me, Sister Fatima Burke from Canada. And then directly below me is Sister Queen Sauda, alhamdulillah. And our other panelists weren't able to make it today, so inshallah, we will try to represent them. Alhamdulillah. We thank you all for joining us today, inshallah, for this very important discussion. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it of immense benefit for us and to accept it from us and to forgive us for any mistakes. Ameen.
Ameen.
All right, so today's topic is talking about striking a balance with today's youth, a balance between connection and correction. A balance between connection and correction. And what sparked this topic is a very important topic that, we can actually, do a series on probably. But it's a topic that's very important because many times we are, we have some difficulties, some challenges in relating with the youth because of age difference, of culture difference, different understandings, and some of the things that they have an affinity for that, generations prior to them may not have. So I came across this podcast on YouTube. I started to watch it, and the title of it was, "Is Generation X out of touch with today's youth?" And I'd watched it, and it was about almost a 2-hour program. And so it made me think about it because I'm from Generation X. Generation X is normally between 1961, 64, and 1980, 81, something like that. That is the people who were born during that time. And then prior to that, before Generation X, you have the baby boomers, but which all of our panelists, I don't know about Dr. Sabir, because I could just tell you, I don't know. If I didn't know better, I didn't think age passes over him, If you think he look good on camera, you should see him in person.
Yeah.
Goodness, man. So I ain't gonna assume, but he'll tell if he wants to, And so all of our panelists, mostly from generation, baby boomers, and then before that, you have the traditionalists, those who were born before like 1945, I think it is. And then after that, you have the millennials who were born. What's the years for those, Sister Fatima?
1981 to 1996.
Yeah, 1981 to 1996. Those are the millennials. And then after the millennials, everyone after 1996 is considered the current youth generation, which is Generation Z. And so, all of those generations have, their features and their characteristics and what makes them, who they are, from the traditionalists coming, out of the depression, knowing what struggle is, and, having solid families and starting to see like economic prosperity take off. Then you have the baby boomers who were born, and they, at the end part of their era, they started to see the civil rights movement come into play. And then you have the Generation X who started to see the rise of fatherless homes and single mothers and a lot of these government programs that were kind of designed to, break up the traditional family structure. Then you had the millennials who were basically, I would say it's almost like babies raising babies, a kind of generation like that. And then you have the Generation Z who are almost primarily growing up, In my generation, they said, we were those. Another name they had for it was latchkey children. You remember that term? They said latchkey children, those
Yeah,
who
latchkey kids.
parents who started to take off and pursue their careers, and we had to take on more responsibility with our parents being out of the home, and so now this generation is almost exclusively being raised with technology, with social media, and it's fascinating in one sense, and then it's sad in another, and so so that range you're talking about from traditionalists and some who are still alive. So a traditionalist born before 1945 would be what, 80, about 80 something years old now, 80 plus. The baby boomers, 70s, 60s, like that. And Generation X is my generation, that whole range. And so you're talking about a range of customs and characteristics, changes, a lot of political things that have taken place in the world. And so there's a vast array of attitudes and how we approach things, how we do our day-to-day activities, our outlook on life, our outlook on what success is, what hard work is, and all of those things. So we'll try to explore some of that today. But back to this podcast I watched. And so it was saying that this brother who was from Generation X, he wasn't Muslim, by the way. So let me make that clear. So you got to take the stuff with a grain of salt. So he was just saying about how some of the, Generation X, how we tend to look down on those who come after us. And he was kind of in what I gathered from it was like a condescending kind of thing. Like, and I see a lot of guys my age that, they don't know how to connect with the younger guys. They think what they're doing. And, this whole line, back in our day, we didn't do this. But then as Generation X, it was the same thing that our elders told us. We didn't do things like this when we were, and, then our grandmother said, no, they told us you don't do things like that. They didn't say we didn't do things like that. You don't do things like that. You don't leave a mess. You don't sweep up outside of your house. All of the things that they taught us as etiquettes, we've lost along the way. And so that's the discussion, inshallah, that I would like to have today. How do we connect with Generation Z with, either through how connection or correction, because being from Generation Z, I was able to, pull some things from baby boomers and the traditionalists and learning some of those things, some of those what we would call old school values, like you meant what you said what you meant, you took care of your family, you took care of your neighborhood, and a lot of things that we later becoming a Muslim, you just learned, you spoke to your neighbors, you checked on your neighbors, they didn't have any food, you took them something, some of the old customs, like, I didn't experience them a lot, but like if you moved into the neighborhood, there was always the neighbor would bring you food, like a cup of sugar. You all heard of this, right? And those kind of things, and like a lot of those things now, it's to the point where neighbors look out to each other. To now, where neighbors will live next to each other for years and never even speak, or not even know each other's families, or these kind of things. So there's definitely been a break in those customs that we learned. And from my generation, we kind of guilty of this. And then our generation before that was looking at us like, these young guys are crazy. Oh, you ain't gonna do nothing but end up in jail. You're just gonna be a delinquent and all that. And they used to tell us that kind of thing. And then our response was the same as Generation Z response is now. You don't know what you're talking about, old man. Get out of here, old lady. And all that kind of stuff. But we didn't really say like that. But we would say like, you don't know what you're talking about. But we never really disrespected our elders. We only acted up in school. But at home it was different. But this generation now, subhanallah, they don't have any kind of respect for elders, and so sometimes it has to be a balance between, correcting them some of the things that you just know is wrong, some of the things that from your experience, they had it down the wrong path, some of the things that you just have to tell them straight out, and they probably won't get it. A lot of them nowadays are sensitive. And I think that there has been a break in the connection that we had. So, how do we have this discussion about community? How do we communicate with them? and then how do we also correct them in the right way. So, Dr. Sabir, I'd like to start with you because I know this is a topic that you can relate to well, working with youth. And so I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Once again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. From my perspective, being a man, there's several things. First of all, the character has to be intact. That's very important. And what I mean by intact, it has to be consistent. That means every day, every moment. And also remember that the unseen eye is always watching or listening. So to say that is to say, it's not, you have to deal with different things. You have to go about it differently as far as corrections concerned. Of course, you got to get straight to the point, but you have to learn and polish your skill set as to your approach. There's sometimes you have to be direct, and there's moments where it's called teachable moments where you must address it right then and there, because when it's called a teachable moment, what that means is something similar is happening for that situation needs to be corrected, and it'll gather that person's attention better. That's why it's called teachable moment. You don't want to let that go by. You want it, as soon as that comes in front of you, you recognize it. You got to be on it just as fast, and because it's important. But going back to the character, I like to use example. Say, for instance, you live on a certain block, certain community, or specifically certain street, and every day you go outside, you see stuff all over the ground and in the street and everything, and you see it keep happening all the time. The wrong way to approach it, I feel, is just holler and scream and go out there and holler and scream. Don't do it that way. What I would do is, if I got any children that's old enough for family members, we all go out, or I'll start it myself, whatever's available. I will go out and start cleaning up and be consistent, because we gotta understand, we're working with people that grew up and came up in different manners as we're talking about now, and we have to be methodical about how we do things. We have to be critical thinkers. This is very important. And because you never get a second chance to make a first impression, so never forget that also. So we have to come out. I would come out and start cleaning up and be consistent. Be consistent, because I'm Muslim, and there's a certain adab I must present and responsibility. So I'm gonna be consistent doing it all the time. I don't know how long it takes, because you got to have patience. It's like we talk about sabr, and you keep doing this, because sooner or later people will start helping. The parents will start looking at it. They'll start asking, "Do you need help?" They'll send their children out. It may not happen right then and there all at once, but gradually, gradually by the character. And this is the same approach we got to do with anything else we dealing with people. Because some things have been ingrained in people for years, and it's not going to leave overnight unless Allah says it's going to leave overnight. Otherwise, it's there. And we have to have the insight and patience to guide the situation, no matter what it is. And we must always address things that are wrong. As the saying goes, you have to stand up for what's right or what's wrong all the time. There's no vacations. So you got to be it goes back to consistency again. No vacations in this, because this is how a person is going to take you as an individual, by how you conduct yourself across the board on all issues. What comes out your mouth, your actions. I mean every issue. So we have to be really mindful of that, and we have to train ourselves better to be that like that. That's how we can affect change in a proper way. And another thing is too, also, is to go along with this, is that you don't want to embarrass anybody. So if I had to say something to somebody, what I do, I pull them to the side, because that means they can't focus on telephone, somebody else in the room, a picture on a wall, a TV, a chair, a cup. It's just them and myself. You know, they have to focus on me, and I'm focusing on them. And the matters that need to be attended to, I'm getting more attention, and that's what you want. And this is what you need when you're trying to correct. This is one of the tools that's very important when you want to correct. You want somebody to 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 pay attention to what you're talking about, because this is very important. This is you want to pay attention to you, because this is very important. You know, you're trying to keep their attention. You're trying to show them that you are consistent, and
Oops. And poof.
Oh, well, okay. We hear resume when he comes back on. So, Sister Fatima, would you like to address that question? What are some of the ways that we can correct them, you know, in a way that is effective?
I don't know if I don't know.
Yeah. Now, let me get back to what I was saying. We got this phone is crazy. I gotta
Yeah.
do something about it. These advertisements keep jumping up. That's why this is happening. I don't know why.
Oh,
Must have been an app. It must have been an app I added on here, but I'm gonna fix this soon. Not today. I mean, not while we're talking, but
yeah.
later on. But anyway, what I'm saying is we got to keep their attention and focus on doing what's right, and not give. You know, they say if you give a person an inch, they take a mile. You can't give them an inch, because they already had too many inches. Matter of fact, they had feet. You know, so we gotta cut that off at the path, because we don't want this to keep festering and growing. We don't want it like that. You know, in order to change behavior, you have to be consistent with that person. You have to develop a relationship, and they have to trust you. So that goes back to your character. If a person sees you doing things the same way all the time, that develops trust. And when you develop a trust, then they don't have to keep their guard up. They don't have to keep their armor around you. And that's what you want. You want to remove brick by brick. You want to move their armor off of them. So when you say something to them or you're doing something, they ask questions, and or they'll listen to what you have to say. And this is what you want. This is how I approach the situation, because there's no point in having wasted conversations if you don't capture them. So you got to capture the heart first. You capture the heart, everything else comes into play. And like I said, this is how I do it, because it's necessary. But you have to be savvy. You have to be able to pay attention, because sometimes you have groups of people. You know, you have groups of people, and you got to deal with it a certain way, differently than you deal with it individually. But it's still correction. But it's all a matter of how you go about it. And see, another situation too, because I tell people, first is one-on-one correction, then is group correction, then there's a male correction, and then there's a female correction. I want to make that clear. So you got four different ways. You know, you got four different things you have to pay attention to when you do the corrections, because you don't want nobody to tune you out. You want them to tune you in. So those four things, don't forget. We can't just figure everybody's mixed up together and we're gonna do it like this. No, you got to realize we taught in Islam is the women's emotions are different than ours as males, the female and the male. So we have to handle it accordingly the same way. So I want to make that very clear when we do these corrections, that we understand the dynamics that has to deal with these certain kind of situations that come up, because it's very important. Because there's no one size fits all. That's not true. You know, one size don't fit all. You know, it's the same with me. If I'm talking to somebody old, that's another thing too. Let me add on to this. I talk to people differently when they're older versus when they're young. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying not no disrespect in that, but it's a different kind of language I use. Put it that way. That's another thing you add on to that too, because you can't do everybody the same. You can't do each age group the same. You know, you got to have savvy, you got to have insight, you got to have critical thinking to be able to handle all these different dynamics. Very important. So I just want, you know, everybody who's listening to think about that, because a lot of times people go wrong because they don't understand those dynamics. They don't, because it's not critical thinking in their part. They're not used to it. But once you get used to it, if you can break it down in the subcategories, then you'll understand more what I'm talking about, because it's more effective that way. And another thing too is when you're dealing with young people, what I do is I help them, I teach them. And while I'm teaching them, I know they're going to go back where they live at, and they're going to, and hopefully the ones that take what they learn, they start implementing it. And then the other ones at their age will ask them, who you talking to? How come you changing? And then they'll be ones that really teach them after we teach the person to go back in there, and they'll go back and give the message. It's better for them to do it. That's how I look at it. It's better for them to go back and give the message than us all the time, them, because their peers are around them more than we are around them. So this is how I look at it, and that's how I approach it. And that's it for now.
Alhamdulillah, Dr. Sabir. Thank you for that great insight, mashallah. Sister Fatima.
Yeah, I think, I was listening to Dr. Sabir, and, he's correct, is that we have to stand back, first of all, and assess the situation, the circumstances of where they're at, because I don't know how to communicate in their language. Like, how can I? I don't have a lot of experience with children. I never had children, so, and I'm not around children. I'm mainly around seniors, but it's like, I really have to sit back and think, what are they doing? How are they acting? Why are they acting? And try to connect with them on some level. But there's always something we have in common. Always something we have in common. And communication definitely is the key. While Dr. Sabir was talking, I was thinking about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he said, talk to the people in a language they understand. And I think that it really applies here, because my language isn't the same as the language these kids are talking, not in the least. But, I'm also putting this into another light. Maybe it's not just the youth, but I like working with the homeless, and it's the same situation. I have to assess the situation before I walk into an encampment. I can't just, being all hoity-toity or whatever, I have to walk in a different way than how I would talk to my co-workers, my companions. It's basically the same, but a little different. I have to show a lot more compassion and more whatever it takes to make that bond with them, because you have to. Without that bond, you're not going to get anywhere. You can say whatever you want. It just goes in one ear and out the other. Remember that, as it did with us when our parents were trying to correct us. Like, I can remember just daydreaming, going off somewhere, so my mom's lips were just going. I can remember that. So they're doing the same to us. They're doing the same to us. It's no different. The feelings, their emotions are the same, but it's just a different way of them acting out. In preparation for this show, I started looking into some of the background of all the different reasons how the generations have changed, all the dynamics that have made them change. Like this Generation Z, they're always on social media. They're always on a phone. They're always on a computer. We got to remember all the other things that are happening to them because of that. The blue light, everything. There's all kinds of things affecting their way of thinking. And they don't know how to deal with mental health issues. They don't know how to communicate one to one like we used to. Like I go in the room, I talk to everybody. They don't know how to do that. They don't know how to communicate. We have to teach them how to do that. And that it's okay. They can say something wrong. My God, I'm a good example of that. I say things wrong all the time, but people still like me and I still learn. So it's like we have to teach them these things. We have to have the compassion to remember what was it like when we dealt with our parents. We dealt with elders that were coming after us that we thought were stupid, that they didn't know anything. And a lot of them didn't have any education, but that's okay. And it's the same thing. It's just they're a different way of them communicating. And they haven't had some of the good life that we've had. Like, we knew how to play. We go outside and play. We'd laugh and have the wind blowing in our faces. And they just stay inside. And, it's just like they don't know how. And COVID didn't help. The alienation didn't help. Social isolation is one of the biggest things that we have to learn to combat with if our youth are going to have a chance. If we're going to have other leaders step into the current leaders that we have. We have to learn how to do it, inshallah.
Okay, Sister Sauda, inshallah, like your input on it.
Okay. Well, I'm from the old school generation, the baby boomers. And to this day, I'm still old school. And from the way that I was taught and the way I was raised, it was always much respect given to the elders. And there was a family life. And even if it was a single parent household, there still was a family life because you also had members of the neighborhood that also reached out, to you as well. So it really was like a village. And so therefore I would had to be respectful to my elders or to my parents and also the elders in the neighborhood. Much respect was given to them. And it was just taught that way. I lived that way. And I knew that I better not embarrass. For in my case, my great aunt embarrassed her where a neighbor had to come and tell her about a deed that they saw me do or that I was not acting properly or they felt that I answered or spoke to them in a disrespectful manner. It just did not happen. It didn't happen. Uh, we have lost our family structure and also that village. Uh, Even now, some of the kids are so lost that it almost feels as if you don't know if it's a danger to even approach them or to say something to them. You don't know if you're going to get cussed out, if you're going to get shot, or if it's someone from the neighborhood. If you say something to the child or you go to the parent, to speak to them about it, then you see why that child acts that way. Okay, because there's a problem there. So we have to go back, not only to this current generation, but the generation before that to address, what happened, how we lost it. And the basic problem, I think, is that we lost the family structure and that village love. Um, Laws change, the government change, and because of laws that were put on books, it now makes it, given the children, but all you have to do is dial 911 or report the parent or what they may consider, as abuse. Spanking a child is not abuse. Correcting a child is not. But the laws and everything up now that some parents, may feel afraid, to handle or deal with the children in the manner it should be. Now, my rule was, I'm in charge. I'm going to give the rules and you're going to follow them. And if not, there would be consequences. Now, you don't have to beat a child to death. You don't do that. There'll be very few spankings or beatings. But they knew, that there was a possibility. They knew that possibly that, that there would be punishment. But you really, rule by love. And because of that and the love that you have, they knew, these are grounds that you don't cross. These are rules that you don't cross. And there's much respect for everyone. So not only have we lost the present generation, we need to go back to the generation before that to educate them as well and to try and work on getting our family structure back and our village back and our love for one another. And it can't always be from criticism because you don't want to take it, to them, in that manner, but you want to address it in a loving manner and begin before this last generation because it's as if we failed them. We did not continue with our family structure. We didn't continue with love, and we have to be better example, so that we can approach.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So we'll take a pause for the calls right now and then be right back after this commercial break.
Yeah, it's getting slow here.
Black Imams Roundtable. Join us at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Tuesday, inshallah, as we discuss more issues concerning our people in particular and the Muslim Ummah at large, inshallah.
I mean,
All right, so I want to talk about the second part when we talk about connection and how much should we engage the youth on their level without us really compromising our principles and really not lowering our standards, because I do believe that even when you engage the youth on their level, you still have to have a level of authoritativeness, that you still have to be like, okay, I'm on you at this level, but I'm still the adult, I'm still the teacher, I'm still the instructor, and you have to respect me as such. And so when we talk about connecting with them on their level, a lot of it is going to involve, with social media, technology, and all these kind of things. And you can imagine for people from my generation, Generation X, that, they have problems, connecting with the youth with all of this stuff. And then some of the things that they see. And then you can imagine from, baby boomers and traditionalists, the problems that they have connecting with these youth. And like Sister Fatima said, they have their own language now that, from the stuff that we learned, grammar was very important, speaking properly and writing properly in language arts. So when you see somebody, writing something, FR, this stuff becomes, frustrating. So you know what FR stands for, right?
No.
Yeah, see, it stands for, when they say something, doing, FR, it means for real, for real.
okay.
And so they have all these codes that you got to learn, but it's not proper English. I just learned one the other day. A kid said, "Listen, I got my phone on D&D." I said, "What is D&D?"
I know that one.
Do not disturb.
Yeah.
So as they got a whole language that's evolving, and as we try to learn the codes, they got another code. And so trying to engage them on that is kind of frustrating, especially when we learn English. You learn nouns, verbs, and adjectives, and now you have kids that not only have not learned how to read. I've come across a few that don't even know how to write cursive. They don't even know how to sign their name. Yeah, and something is wrong. Like, or kids that I remember there used to be a thrill in learning your multiplications, on your timetables, and there was a whole method that you learned them, and you just knew them, and stuff like that. And so we got to figure out ways to connect with them. And these kids, even though with all the technology, they're not stupid, because from Generation X, we were kind of at the generation when hip hop started, and so the generation that came before used to tell us, that this was not music, that there were no instruments involved initially, and this is trash, this is garbage, it won't survive. And now this year, hip hop is celebrating its 50-year anniversary, right? But early hip hop, actually traditional hip hop, I can call it, is that it was an ode to the music that came before. So like early rappers, they used what's called break beats, and they took the old records and they sampled them and they chopped them and put a drum beat to it. And that was a way to honor the records that came before. So like if you hear people talk about the history of rap music, they say all of the rappers owe their careers to James Brown, because a lot of them used his sampling songs and rapped over them. But hip hop was like that kind of training thing. But now the hip hop music that we learn and what they learn is something totally different. So when we Generation X, and I know the generation before us is probably like, man, I don't know none of it. But our generation, like, that's trash. And so like, and we'll say things like, we'll see some of their current rappers, and the men look feminine, they wearing purses, and some of them wearing fingernails, painted fingernails and stuff. And we like, man, what is this stuff? This is not hip hop. And so one young person one time put up a meme of this old group, one of the pioneers of rap, called the Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. And I know Dr. Sabir, you heard of them, right? Yeah, so these are like the pioneers of rap, from the Bronx. And there was a picture that they put up, and they had them in these real, like, feminine looking clothes, like these furs, like halfway with the underwear. It's like real feminine looking stuff, like stuff that we would have never wore. Even now, looking back, like we would have never wore that crap back in the day, right? And they was like, so next time y'all talk about rappers being feminine, you look at this picture. And but then it was like an attack on us, but then it was like, you know what? They got a point. So for me, that would be a point of discussion where we have a teachable moment. So then we take them into history. Okay, they were trying to emulate the disco scene that they were just coming out of because that helped them to be popular, you know, and so stuff like that. So we have to find ways to connect with them. You know, one of the things happened recently. We were in the school volunteering, and one of the elders was there, and so a guy, it was just one kid kept coming like 15 minutes late all the time. So the brother was like, "Man, what? You don't know what time it is?" He said, "Look at the clock." Right. So the young kid looked at the clock. He had no idea, right? And so the sheikh was like, "Man, what are you talking about?" I said, "Sheikh, they don't know how to use analog clocks. He didn't have his phone. They know digital time, but they don't know how to use an analog clock, you know." And it was like, wow, that speaks volumes of what's been missing in the education and the culture, the upbringing, the cultivation, you know. So we have to find ways to really engage them on their level. So some of this, and it's very difficult because Generation X, you know, like I can't really do this like TikTok stuff and Twitter and these sound bites and even this bad grammar, like, you know, words that spelled wrong. Oh man, it like burns my bridges. But now I have to overcome myself and be like, okay, and then maybe try to use it as a moment. Okay, maybe you should try it this way, you know, and then give them some, you know, knowing how to use a dictionary and stuff that was standard in public school, you know, that was standard in public school, you know. So we do got to come up with ways to engage them, and you know, one of the hardest things because music has such an influence now that you know a lot of these kids are taking their you know their culture from music. You know what I'm saying? So and then you have this trap music and this drill music and this stuff that you know from a hip hop purist perspective is like, man, I can't stomach it. I can't stomach it because I know what real rap sounds like, you know. And but now, okay, I got to go behind the scenes. So I know one of the ways that I do it with rap music is that I have this segment that I call behind the scenes. So I have like the young kids. I always work with these youth between like 12 and 15. So I ask them pick one of their favorite artists, right, and then pick their favorite song. And so we, you know, they got the smart boards in the school, so we bring it up and you know, some of the stuff you can't even play in school. I mean, you know, we went to school where they had the television on the push cart, you know, and when it was a big event, everybody came to watch that episode, that's whatever it was, right? The documentary, and it was all clean. But now, if I play this stuff in the school, I'd probably be banned, you know. But since they gave me my private thing, so I was able to do it, and I'm listening to these lyrics, and everything is just like a bunch of debauchery. You know, you listen to the song, the guy done shot 3 or 4 people. He done sold a massive amount of illicit drugs. He had songs about illicit sex, killed somebody, talked about their mom, the kid. And it's like, wow. And just imagine somebody listening to this day in and day out and day in and day out and how it's, you know, permeating their being where they starting to think that they can live this stuff out. And there's definitely a correlation with that music, how kids are acting now and the way they talk to each other. You know, like somebody said in the comments, when our elders, when we spoke to them, we had to say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And it's not uncommon to find a kid nowadays. You be like, good morning, young man, or good morning, young lady. What's up? The response is, what's up? And how you doing? I'm all right. You know, like we were never allowed to do stuff like that. So, so we have to find a way in some of the training that they receive to really connect with them, and it has to be some type of correction as well as connecting with them, you know. And this is why, you know, since music is such a big influence, I always use it to segue into other things. Like even with my own sons, like you see them listening to rap now, and you see styles that you know they're starting to go over again, you know. And even in our time, there were styles that the '70s cats was like, okay, yeah, we did that already, you know, and stuff like that. So now connecting them with music that we listen to. Okay, you got this funny style haircut, you wearing your shorts like this. Let me show you this video, right? And so show a video from like '89, and the artist is almost exactly the same, or some of the dances, or you know, some of the names of their dances. You know what that name? You know, they got a dance called. They had a song a few years ago called teach you how to Dougie. Yeah, I don't know if you all heard that song. Yeah, see. So
Teach you how to what?
Dougie.
Dougie?
Yeah, D-O like Dougie. But it's a dance thing, it's a beat, and then you go like this, right? And you go like this, right? And you move your body. People in the audience they know what I'm talking about. But they took the song from an artist from my time whose name was Dougie Fresh, and one of his signature moves was that, he will always like he's slicking his hair back. And
Okay.
so now I seen a recent clip of Dougie Fresh taking their song and flipping it and letting them know I'm the originator of the Dougie. So in the show, he's taking it as a teachable moment. I'm going to teach you how to Dougie because I am Dougie. Right? So some of those things, you make the connection, they be like, yeah, I never knew that. And so like we have to find ways to communicate with them where they are, even learning their language, learning their music, and a lot of times learning their backgrounds and what they've been exposed to. Because a lot of them, this is normal stuff, like to have a family full of dysfunction, a family on drugs, a family, where fathers and sons are in jail together, or fathers and sons are in the same gang, or mothers and daughters. You have mothers out here competing with their daughters about who can twerk the best and who can dress the most, provocative. And, everybody, the mother and the daughter, they both look like vixens, or the daughter and the mother, they look like sisters, and they think that this is some type of honorary thing when they all, dress loose and scantily clad. And this has become normal for people, And so how do you connect with these people who have lost these traditional values, who have lost some of the basics of even how you engage your elders, and how, like Dr. Sabir said, how you as an elder, you talk to someone older than you as opposed to someone younger than you. And with them, they all talk the same, And so those are some of the challenges that we have with the youth. So I'd like to hear from all of you, like, what are some of the methods that we can, and at what level? So what level should we engage them in and connecting with them? So I'll go counterclockwise this time, Sister Fatima. So counterclockwise means the other way from the way the clock goes. I know y'all knew that, but
I was thinking about this girl I was talking to. I recently went away to Vancouver, my home town, and I was talking to this young girl in the streets, and her mom turned her out at 11, right? She put her on the streets to make money. And I kept I think about her often. I make too off her often, and it's like, but she had such a good attitude. She was smiling. Because she had achieved some things in her life. She was still She was still out there living on the street, but she wasn't working on the street. She got away for a while, and I was thinking, like, how does one recover from that? How does one change from having parents that would put you out in the streets to make money? That's what these kids are facing. For a lot of them, it's no fault of their own. It's the way society has formed, and where, like you say, you don't know what's going on at home, what they're doing to their kid. I know Muslims, they don't even say Assalamu alaikum to their children. The kids don't even know how to say that. They say, whatever, what's up, And they're so-called Muslims, in name. But it's really, really, really sad. We've gone really far down. I don't know how we can correct them, other than being a good example, showing them how a person should react, how they should be, and not like a lecture is going to do them no good. The same as me, I spaced out, and they're going to do the same. Maybe learn to connect with them on some level, find the interest that they have away from social media that they would like to do. Some don't even know how to throw a ball. Those things. Take them somewhere, take them on a ride, do something, ride a bike with them. They've never ridden a bike, don't have a bike. If you can, maybe get them a bike, rent a bike, do something with them that's fun. Show them that life can be fun away from social media, and then maybe you can connect on some level. That's the only thing I can think of. That's the only thing I can think, because I know words don't always work. For sure they don't.
MashaAllah. Sister Queen Sauda, inshallah.
Well, sometimes it's hard to reach, especially if you don't know what that child is dealing with. Sometimes there's so much trauma in the family. It's not just with the child; it could be with the parents. You don't know what you're dealing with. So on most occasions, it's better in that case, say to do it, say maybe one on one. If you can find someone that is approachable, that you can speak with, or if you can become involved with a parent, to speak with them, to see if maybe there's something that you can help, that you can do. Maybe there's advice that child's parent may need some type of guidance, but there's so much trauma going on that you don't know if what that child has been exposed to, what the
Mhm.
parent has been exposed to, and how far back you may need to go in order to try to correct some of it. Yeah, one on one may find some that will respond to you, and that eventually you'll be able to get your message and your point across to them. Getting the message across sometimes and speaking to them could be bitter to them. But in time, you maybe you could win them over. Maybe you'll get them to the point that they can listen. Some don't even want to hear what you have to say. But if you can get some to the point where they'll listen and their minds are open up enough and their hearts are open up to just listen to what you have to say, and maybe that would be food for thought for them. But we have to try some type of way, to reach them so that we don't continue to lose our generations. Things are not getting better,
Yeah.
so we have to get back to that family. We have to get back to that family and that love and that struggle.
Alhamdulillah.
Very
Thank you.
true.
Okay, Dr. Sabir.
There's a very important thing that I mentioned earlier is you have to make sure that you as an individual, that your character is on point. That's number one. That means keep it polished. Number two is every moment that you have, no matter how little time that you have with young people, make sure you make it count. Don't let it slip by like it's unimportant. See, a lot of times we let stuff slip by like it's not important, but it is important because one word, a sentence, a talk can mean a difference down the road. We don't know that if we let it slip by. So that's the main two things that we need to concentrate on and do, because as it was said earlier, some people are not going to change. It's not going to make a difference. We understand that that's a given in any category of life. That's a given. That's like saying people say sometimes, well, I'm not perfect. We don't need to say that. We already know that that's a fact, just like there's other facts attached to that. So therefore, we have to be the best that we can be and make sure we conscientious and consistent about how we do things. And the meaning of time, that's another thing too. Don't think 5 minutes don't mean is not as equivalent to an hour. And what I mean by that is time in general is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this time in general. All of it's important. We just got to make sure that as individuals are polished, our characters are polished, our thinking is polished, that we recognize that we have to make impacts when it's available, when it's right in front of us. We ain't got to wait till next week, tomorrow, 5 minutes from now. It means the moment that is presented, say something or do something, and that's all we can do. But as long as we're consistent, because remember, just like we have people in the bad categories and one in the good category as far as young people, something's going to stick on someone. So don't think what anything we do is in vain, because everybody don't need everything, but everybody needs something. So maybe it'll go to the person. It may not. Maybe that person you said it to, or I said it to, it may not penetrate to that person. What if they mentioned it to somebody else, to one of their peers, and it penetrated them?
Yeah.
So don't look at things like it's insignificant, because it is significant to somebody. It is, and that's how I look at it. So that's why I take every moment, and no matter who I'm with, I make sure I say we have some kind of something. I don't care if it's a greeting, a smile, a talk on a topic for a few minutes, whatever it is. I gotta make sure I do my part because the chain is long. The chain is long on both ends. Their end being young people, and ours being adults. And what I mean by the chain link is that each one of us got to do our part for it to work. I mean, it's for it to make an impact. Put it that way, to make some kind of impact. We can't measure. We can't measure. Um, we can't measure like if we're looking at it. If we're looking at it
Yeah.
as far as a number, or as far as it being, if we say 1 to 100, we can't make a statement like that. We can't have a number saying, well, 1 to 100. But my thing is, we have to make some kind of impact that makes it different, that takes us off of one, by all of us participating, some kind, shape, or way, form in every moment we get. This is very important. So I just want to remind myself first and others, we can't stop this, because if we quit, then it gets worse. We have to continue to do something. Just because we don't see a change don't mean a change is not happening. And what I mean by that also is that when you tell somebody something good, something's going to stick. They heard you. I mean, if they heard you, they seen you do something. It's just like all these, when we have advertisement about, when they do about different holidays and spend your money on this and that, and they keep doing this to you all the time. This is why we got to be all the time with the good. So this is called our marketing for what's enjoying what's good and forbid what's evil. This is part of our marketing and our character, and this is why we got to keep doing it. We got to keep doing this. Just like they keep doing the other stuff, negative stuff come down, we got to keep the positive stuff going out, and that's what we have to do, and not give up, because something does mean something somewhere. We just got to believe that. Because if we don't believe that, then we're not going to be consistent on trying to say something to be helpful and kind, and some kind, in a way that it can affect somebody. That's why consistency is important about anything you do. Anything. If you're not consistent in going to gym, working out, reading books, studying, talking to people about different topics, being around people who's trying to accomplish the same thing, then you're not serious. You're just talking. You just got a tongue and lips on your face that's moving, but no action with your feet. And so we got to be consistent. Consistency is paramount. Paramount. It's not insignificant, it's paramount. So we all of us, me first, we must be consistent.
Alhamdulillah, Dr. Sabir. Yeah, I think one of the things that we do have to do and continue what you were just saying, and being consistent, and we have to make more of an effort to go after kids, because I remember a time growing up, it was just like whenever we had some type of event, just all the kids were together and adults were separate, and they did their thing and we played and all that. And then when something happened, the adults intervened. As stuff that would happen as a child, somebody break, somebody hit somebody, then the adults, they will all be on the same page. That's really not the case nowadays. My wife was telling me a story last night. She was saying that one time they were doing some stuff outside when she was a kid, and the neighbor said, "You better stop doing that." And she said something and ran, and the neighbor chased her. And when the neighbor got to her, she was in her house in the doorway. She said she remember seeing her dad in there and her aunt, and the neighbor like disciplined her right there, and her dad was like looking, and waited till the neighbor finished, and then she got another beating.
Yeah.
So those days are long gone. Because but those are kind of things now we have to find a way to reconnect with these youth when they're out and doing stuff. And some of these youth, we also can't be afraid, even though they might look dangerous. There's some words that we can always impact. Because many times I've seen people from Generation X, and I hear some guys say this all the time. Nah, man, I ain't mess with them young boys, man. Them boys is crazy. No, they're not crazy. They were you 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And you wasn't crazy 20 years ago. You was just misdirected and misguided. Yeah, and I understand that the level of respect and all that stuff is different, but we can bring it back. But you just can't talk to him like the old heads talked to us back in the day. They just said what they had to say, and they wasn't scared to say it. And
Right.
you know, and we still say, yes, sir, you know what, you're right. And even though we still did our stuff, but there's just you have to use different tactics now. But we do have to make a concentrated effort of going more after children and engaging them first and being proactive with them. You know, like I give an example. There's these kids around my way. So around my area, there's a lot of drug activity. So I go out there and engage them sometimes. And so, they throw trash on the ground. So I get one of them that I see often. I say, yo, young blood, let me talk to you for a second. I said, you ever been on a construction site? He's like, nah. I said, well, on a construction site, sometimes you might have downtime where you're not working. But when the supervisor, if he sees you moving the broom all the time, look like you're working, even when there's nothing to do, they appreciate that. So I have my broom in my hand. So when I'm cleaning up, so I gave him the broom. I said, this is your construction site, right? So he grabbed the broom and I showed him what to do. And I showed him different. This is recycled. This is trash. Put them in here, right? All right, OG, all right. So he got it. And so, one day, I usually try to do it early in the morning before like the neighbors get up and stuff. And I came outside and it was spotless, right? And guess who I seen? The young guy. And I was like, yo, man. I was so happy I went over there and hugged him. And so now I put him I gave him a fake, not fake, but I put him in charge of the area so that he always take care of that stuff, man. So I said, now you're not on the construction site. One of these guys is going to be on the construction site. So you give him the broom. He said, all right, OG. And so how it started, because a couple of times I came out and my broom and stuff was missing, and I was hot. So, man, where my stuff at? And in the area, people steal things. I'm like, man, and then so I went to the young guy and I said, listen, man, you got to put the tools back when you finish. So he said, all right, man. I said, yeah, I'm missing my rate. He said, all right, I know who got it. And then another guy came and said, yeah, the dude down the street, he took it. Yeah, could you go get it for me? Yeah, I got it. And but that connection is something important, because normally, I see them throwing stuff on the ground. You know what I mean? So I had to take a different approach instead of like, yo, man, pick that up. That's not going to work, So, but finding ways to engage them, find out what level they are, because a lot of them, like I said, they're very intelligent, they're very aware, and some of them are waiting for elders to make that initiation with them. Some of them are waiting to hear some things, even when you get through the facade that they're putting up, or the front, because everything is about, I got to be hard, I got to be like this, and it's really just a form of trying to protect themselves from anybody getting close to them, and then it's a sign that they've already been hurt by somebody, so they try to block everybody out. So, there's something to, these kids, in 90-degree weather wearing hoods. It's like just a form of rebellion. I mean, it's something that's like, I got to do something different. But we did the same thing in the 80s and 90s when we started sagging our pants and, and wearing Timberlands with the shoes untied and all that kind of stuff, So that was what they're doing now was our equivalent of that at that time, And to people who came before us in the 70s who dressed sharp as a tack, they looking at us like, what do you? Yeah, you got name brand stuff on, but you look like a piece of junk. Yeah, because back then, I mean, even, Dr. Sabir, people like that, even if they were strung out on drugs, they were sharp as a tack, clean, and that was just something in our culture. You didn't come outside looking all, crust in your eyes and without no lotion and, stuff like bondage. That's why you see some of the elders now, these women coming out with bondage and shoes. Like that stuff, it irks your soul, but we got to find a way to make that connection. Okay, look past the bonnet, look past the hoodie in 90-degree weather, look past the sagging pants, look past the tattoos, and see that human person for what they are and where they are, and try to gauge them as much as we can, because they need that elderly experience. They need a shot from the traditionalists. They need a shot from the baby boomers. They need somebody from Generation X that can relate a little bit with them, and then the generation before them, the millenniums. to give them something as well, you know. So all of us got to play a part in helping this generation, you know, learning their language, you know, that they're totally engrossed in technology, you know, and all of these things that they're going to be faced with in the future. We got to, you know, find a way to give them some of them old school values that, you know, may resonate with them way, you know, way after we gone. I mean, I'm still remembering stuff that I learned in grade school that I remember neighbors and stuff telling me. Now it just hit me, you know. So that's is very important. Like Dr. Sabir said, you might be speaking to a kid, and it's the kid that next to him that might get it. You know, you might be speaking to a group of youth, and the one that was always in the back that you thought was just withdrawn, he's the one soaking it up. She's the one soaking it up, you know. And so you never know who the message hit. But the thing is to always be consistent and giving the message and engaging them all the time. Even if it was just like, you know, taking a moment to correct them on how they greet you, because I'll do it all the time. Yeah. Hey, how you doing, young man? What's up? Hey, hold on. You know, there's a better way we could do this, right? So let's try it again. I'm going to act like an elder person. You act like you, right? Good morning. You know, did you say, good morning, sir? I'm like, how are you? Fine, thank you. Okay, great job. Give us some dap. What's your name, man? You know, where you from? Oh, I'm from this part of town. Okay. Yeah, you look familiar. What's your people's name? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, man. You know what, man? I know your uncle, man. We went to school together, man. So we family. You know that, right? So when you buy the mass shit, man, come through anytime, you know, help yourself to a bottle of water, you know, like that. All right, OG, you know. And, you know, I'm like, I don't really like being called OG, but it's like that's their language. Okay, so I know what it means. That's their way of saying sir, you know. So okay, we'll take it from there, you know. And you might not see them again. You'll see them again, but at least you made that connection. But you know, when you engage them like that, they remember. You know, oftentimes I hear kids when I'm out and about, you know, they call, you know, they'll be like, yeah, I remember you. You came to my school, such and such. And one that really made my heart, I had to start crying. I think I told the story before. It was a kid that used to live down the street from me, but they moved. And every day he would see me, when he would see me cleaning up, he would ask me for money. So I'm like, no, I got a job for you, right? And so I'll go walk around, we pick up put the bottles in recyclables. So I give him $5, right? And so then every day he started coming. I'm like, listen, I don't got $5 to give you every day. Just so I did, so we're doing it these days. We do it on these days, right? All right. So, but you got to be here 7:30 a.m. So he came 7:30 a.m. I was like, oh, this kid got potential. So let me get up. You know, I'm out. You know, I'm like Saturday morning. I ain't really, you know, but okay, let me get up, walk with him, show him what I need done. And so then the next day, he brought his little brother. Right? So his little brother said, "Man, I want to work too." Oh, that's $10. Okay, now we got to do it one day because you know what I mean? So and they had to move. So it was some years ago, and I seen them like last summer, right? And I'm riding down the street. I was with my wife, and so I see. No, this is the funny story. His name was Kendrick something. It was Kendrick Johnson, right? So he said, "Yeah, my name is Kendrick Johnson, but you could call me KJ," right? He was like 9 years old. I'm like, well, you know, my mom was like, what do you mean? Call you KJ? Like, who are you, right? But I liked he had an outgoing spirit. So I said, okay, KJ, meet me here, this and that. So then they moved. And then I seen him the other day. It was like last summer. And I hear something go, Mr. Lee. And I was like, and I was going the opposite way. So I looked down and it was him. And he was out there on like the mediums and like one of the avenues selling waters because he was always trying to earn some money. So I doubled back around, I jumped out and gave him a hug, and I was like, "Yo, man, how you doing?" And but that kind of stuff is just like it warms your heart to let you know that there is hope for these kids. Just a little engagement because I didn't talk to him a lot. I didn't really beat him down. I didn't, you know, I let him make his mistakes and what I wanted. He did something different. Okay, he might have a different method, you know, but the goal is I need you to pick all the bottles up. So he listened. He was on time. So I took all those factors into consideration. So every time I see him, it had to be consistent. It's like it couldn't be one day like, oh, Mr. Lee, I'm ready to work. Nah, I don't feel like, man, don't, you know, I couldn't do that. So it's like, okay, if he's ready, I got to be ready. But that Mr. Lee, when he hollered that out, and so we was looking like, man, why? Like, what the hell is calling me my name out like that, right? I looked and I saw him, and I was like, oh, we got to turn back around. You know, and actually, his mom, why they moved, I found out later because his mom had passed away, and he was still young. He had a younger brother and an older sister, and but he's turned out to be a good kid, So
Okay.
that engagement, like that, Mr. Lee will resonate with me for the rest of my life, So now I got to find the next one that had that kind of impact on. So, but it's always, taking time, and even we all have our own children. We have our own children, and some of us we got grandchildren that we gotta, we getting another chance to try to do it right. I don't have any grandchildren yet, but a lot of my peers have a grandchildren. And they taking responsibility again. We got to take responsibility for somebody else's children and grandchildren because it's going to take this village, And the traditionalists, the baby boomers, all of us, we are still in the village, Don't be in the village and be isolated, Come outside and let people know, And if I sweep my walkway, you sweep your walkway, it's going to have a chain reaction. The person that sweep their white walkway, see all these other ones looking good. Maybe they might not do it, but for the hopes that they see all these other walkways swept, maybe it'll click and be like, "Hey, let me sweep my walkway." I don't want to be, and that's how we fix it, inshallah. So I'm sorry I took too much time in with all that,
Okay.
but you all have some parting words before we leave on this topic, or
Oh no, you did it. You did it quite well.
Yeah.
mashallah, from you, Dr.
FR.
Thank you. Mashallah. Yeah.
Thank you for teaching me that. I can use that.
Yeah. I always try to use it, the important, because to let kids know, where they coming from,
Yeah,
So, and
exactly.
and once they know you coming from, and I find this effective too, like once they know that you know something that they don't know, they give you respect because it's just children. Oh man, they don't know nothing about that, And then you see each generation had their own version of what you think is exclusive to yours, So and I remember we used to talk about. I thought growing up we used to get government assistance with the cheese and all that. Remember those programs during the Reagan eras where they gave you free cheese and all this kind of stuff, and we thought that was like a sign of people who were on welfare and not doing too well. Like you had to get assistance, and that was like shameful back then. Like, it wasn't proud to have this. Like you had to go get it. It was like a sign of poverty. But then I talked to one of the traditionalists, one of my teachers that died a couple years ago. He was born in 1932, and he just right after the Depression. So he was telling me how they used to go to the chicken factory and get chicken feet. And they used to make soup out of chicken feet. So I'm like, all this time I thought I was, doing bad at eating grilled cheese sandwiches, and chicken feet. Like I see them now, and I'm hearing that it's tasty as a soup, but I just can't imagine. I can't do it, But his struggle was different, So, and when we relate to struggles, and nowadays kids thinking that not being well off or having a life of luxury or having all of this stuff or the appearance of it, they think that's poverty. No, you don't know what poverty is. You're just not well off according to these dreams, these false standards that they're selling you. You know what I mean? So stop occupying yourself with that, And so all of that we got to put together, and this all makes up the village to help these kids to develop, inshallah. So we ask Allah to give us success. But if you all have any words of advice for our listening audience before we conclude, inshallah.
If you see something beautiful or good in someone, let them know.
Yeah, that's definitely important. Let them know. Give them some words of encouragement. You never know how it might hit them.
Be a good listener before you speak.
Mm-hmm.
Very important. That's very therapeutic. Listening to people, seeing where they at, and giving them a safe space to talk. That's something very needed with these young people because everybody's so boxed in, and it's like this. It's like vulnerability to say some things. But no, it's okay to talk about your stuff. I'm here to listen, not to judge. And Sister Queen Sauda, take us on out of here with something powerful.
And always remember that you just good example for watching you and so be good example. Be that light out for the someone that they look up to, someone they respect. In order for them to respect.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And also know just that everything that we do is significant and none of it is unrecognized by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of it, whether little or lot, has an impact. And we just need to take that responsibility on ourselves to do it. You know, smiling, greeting, and striking a balance between correction and connection. So connect with them and tweak the things that they need to do. Show them an alternative instead of just saying it's wrong or, you know, I didn't do that when I grew up. You know, how you grew up and how they growing up is two different worlds altogether. And sometimes they're not relatable. So it's upon us as responsible adults to show them a way and give them some guidance along their way and not be afraid to, you know, let them fail and let them make their mistakes, and also let them be willing to take the helm when they have the potential. And this is one thing I also learned from elders, like they don't, and because they don't want to see kids fail, that they've enabled them so much that they're doing everything for them. They're doing every single thing. I remember a mother and son we was mentoring, and she was having some issues with the son. He was about 12 or 13. So we asked her, like, okay, well, what kind of responsibility does he have? Mom took out the trash. She ironed his clothes. She did everything for him. He didn't have any responsibility. And so he felt entitled for everything. I said, well, Mom, you know, it's part of the problem. You know, you made him a king, but he was never a warrior before. You know? You made him a king, you know, and you hear him like, this is my king, my king. You're serving this person like he's royalty, but he was never in the king's army. He was supposed to be in the king's army before he took the throne, you know. And a lot of them are missing that responsibility and that structure and that organization that many of us we got because and I like this about old school thing, and they didn't care how you felt about it. You just do it, you know. Part of that was I dug. But go ahead, Dr. Sabir.
One of the things I want to say again, that there is no substitute for manhood training. I want to make that clear. There is no substitute, period. I'm gonna leave it right there. But some parents think, you know, that it's insignificant, but it's very significant for the males, just like it's womanhood training for the females. It's very important. You know, it's very important. You know, we can't act like it's not important. You know, it's very important. But we don't forget that because everybody needs training, all of us.
Absolutely.
We needed training to get to where we at now. You know, so we got to make that clear. We need that.
Naam, inshallah. Okay, so alhamdulillah, we thank the listening audience for hanging out with us this afternoon. MashaAllah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept it and bless it. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. الفاتحة. Alhamdulillah. Thank you all again for tuning in. We see you on the next show. May Allah bless you and keep you all safe. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.